Oh baby, what's going on? How we doing? Little mocky mock here on what's going to be a Wednesday. This is a Superflex tight end premium mock draft with landing spots. Some of these landing spots you might think are a little bit out there. That's fine. I'm using a mock draft. Cody Carpentier's mock draft 4.0 came out January 6th, I believe. You should go check it out. I'm sure he's going to have different iterations and different versions as the NFL draft slots get solidified. Some of them got solidified over the weekend. I'm recording this on Monday. But you can see there in this column, we have the rounds, not necessarily the picks. Now, some of these, like obviously the Titans, that's the 101 with Cam Ward. But some of these other ones, the pick is not, we're going to have an idea of where the pick's going to be. It's not a specific set in stone pick yet. We just know the round. But anyway, this is what the NFL draft does. It throws us curveballs, and that's okay. It happens every year. We have to adjust, and that's the purpose of this exercise in part. And the other part is, mock drafts are fun, and hypothetically putting different players in different situations and where we might draft them in our rookie drafts. Anyway, let me know what you think of this whole exercise. Click the like button, subscribe. I'm not going to mess around anymore. At the 101 with the Cowboys, so this would be pick 12, we are taking Ashton Jeanty. And I think it's simple. I know he still put up pretty big numbers in their playoff game. So I know some people I talked to weren't all that impressed with his performance in that game, and I'll say this, it's one game. When you look at the total body of work for Ashton Jeanty, it is very, very impressive. He is, I don't know if he's as good as Bijan, but I would go so far as to say he's in that hemisphere or stratosphere or whatever the term is as far as a talent goes. So, again, Ashton Jeanty to me is pretty easily my 101. Now, we get to the 102 and it gets a little bit more complicated because we have some good landing spots, or what I perceive to be good landing spots. We have the $1 million question with Travis Hunter at wide receiver. We have Tet McMillan going to the Raiders in the top 10. We have Luther Burden making it to the top 10 because the Saints pick at number 9. And we also have these two quarterbacks, Cam Ward, the number 1 pick overall, Shedeur Sanders. So there's a couple different directions we could go. I do believe if Cam Ward is selected number 1 overall by the Titans, that this is probably the pick here. I've come around on this because of the quarterback situation in Superflex. Quarterback is king. Cam Ward, if he's taken number 1 overall, first of all, he's my favorite quarterback in this class. Second of all, if he's taken number 1 overall by the Titans, we know Calvin Ridley's there. We have an offensive-minded coach and Brian Callahan there. And the situation sets up pretty good for him right away, I think, with Calvin Ridley being there as a decent receiver. I know it's not tremendous, but he's still the number 1 overall pick with an offensive-minded head coach. I would say that's worthy of the 102. And then at the 103, I think I'm just going to keep on doing it. And I know some of you are going to think I'm nuts here, but Travis Hunter, and again, we're going to find out more information as we go along in this process. And the only reason, as I'm having trouble here with I'm not sure why I'm color coding these, to be honest with you, because it's just me making these picks. So I'm going to uncolor code these. That's my bad. I don't know why I'm doing this. I got into the habit of color coding them because we'd have multiple guests on these podcasts, and they would be, obviously we would need to color code them for the picks that were made. But Travis Hunter here at the 103, if you told me that he's mostly going to be playing cornerback, yes, he's going to slide down my rankings. The 103, I'd even consider him at the 102. Like if Cam Ward wasn't picked number 1 overall, and we didn't have that certainty as far as he's going to play quarterback. I like Cam Ward quite a bit as a quarterback prospect. I've come around on him. Travis Hunter, to me, might be the most dynamic talent in this entire draft. If you told me he is locked and loaded for 60% of the snaps on offense, I would have no problem taking him here at the 103. I'd even consider him at the 102. That's a toss-up for me. It's a genuine toss-up between the quarterback and the wide receiver. I just went quarterback because it's a little bit safer. And I honestly don't love the Tet McMillan landing spot there with the Raiders because and I guess it's true of, Cam Ward and with the Titans. The Raiders, there's a lot of uncertainty in that spot too. There's a lot of uncertainty for Cam Ward. There's a lot of uncertainty for Tet McMillan with the Raiders. But I think he's going to be my pick here at the 104. Just because, we get... I'm having troubles here with the technology. But just because we get, a wide receiver here, I know the quarterback situation is up in the air. But we get a quarterback, or not a quarterback. We get a wide receiver who's a top 6 pick. He's a bigger wide receiver, profiles very similarly to maybe a Drake London or a Mike Evans. And I like him as a prospect quite a bit. Now, was there some stuff on tape that I didn't necessarily like? Sure, but, Tet McMillan's not a perfect prospect, and neither are a lot of people. With that being said, I will go Shedeur Sanders now at the 105. And I honestly, if you ask me, in all seriousness, I don't know why I said that, in all seriousness. If you ask me which prospect maybe I'm most concerned about, it might be Shedeur Sanders with the Giants. I get it in this situation. You would think, well, Cam Ward with the Titans, that seems like a worse situation. I like Cam Ward quite a bit more as a prospect than Shedeur Sanders, to be honest with you. And I don't deny, he's going to have Malik Neighbors, and I remember, these are not the same players at all, but Justin Fields with DJ Moore. I mean, DJ Moore and Justin Fields, DJ Moore elevated Justin Fields to be sure, and I think Malik Neighbors would be that and much, much more for Shedeur Sanders. But I am concerned about the prospect. I am concerned about the situation with the Giants. I think it's a little bit more dysfunctional with the general manager that's still there and the coach that's still there. To me, they would have to commit to those guys longer term, and I don't know if the Giants are willing to do that. Just think of the chaos surrounding Caleb Williams this year with a lame duck head coach. Now the Bears are hanging on to the general manager. I mean, Caleb Williams had to play with 3 offensive coordinators this year, and I'm not saying that would happen with Shedeur Sanders. I'm an outsider when it comes to the Giants, but I do know that if they select Shedeur Sanders, it's very similar to the Bears in that the quarterback might not be paired up with the head coach. If the team doesn't do that well to start the year, and let's face it, the Eagles are still going to be a really good team next year. The Commanders are still going to be a really good team next year in that division. If they don't come out and do and perform right away, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on him in New York, the coach could be fired midseason. Same with the GM, and then all of a sudden you have chaos there. And there's already chaos there with some of the decision makers, with the head coach, and especially the GM that we saw in Hard Knocks. So yeah, I keep copying and pasting when I shouldn't, but so that's kind of the rationale. I with that pick, I droned on there for a second. So let's shift some of these cells up. And I think the next pick's pretty cut and dry. I think it's Luther Burden here as a top 10 pick with the Saints. We getting picked 9th overall in this example. And I think, Derek Carr is going to be there, so there's going to be some some assurance. Like, we don't know who the head coach is going to be, but we likely know who the quarterback is going to be, barring something unforeseen. And, he gets paired up with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. If they take Luther Burden there, that's actually all of a sudden that receiver room with Olave, Burden, and Rashid Shaheed. It's interesting. I don't know if it's a top 5 unit. It might be in the conversation for top 10 in the NFL. So now things get interesting, but I do think Egbuka would be the pick here. We have some interesting names at running back that I could choose. We got Omarion, Hampton. Some of these landing spots are interesting. Omarion, Hampton with the Texans. Joe Mixon's there. Kaleb Johnson with the Chargers. That might be, that is tempting. And maybe that's what, I should do. Quinshon Judkins with the Ravens. Heir apparent to Derrick Henry. TreVeyon Henderson with the Chiefs in round 2. So those players are going to be coming off the board soon. Don't worry. But I do think Egbuka, and maybe I'm just too nuts about this landing spot. Let me know what you think in the comments. But I love this landing spot for Egbuka in the late first round, paired up with Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. I think this would be perfect, a perfect complement for them, and it would really help out Jaden Daniels as well in his development as he goes from a rookie to a second-year player. I think Egbuka would come in right away and be an excellent route runner at the NFL level. I think his skill set translates very, very well, and he could step in day one. He might not have the elite upside of a Travis Hunter or a Tet McMillan, but I think he's really, really good, and he could come in right away and make an impact. So that's the rationale there. So we do have a couple tight ends that were drafted in round 1, but I do think that there's a clear pick here at the 108, and if I was at the 108, honestly, you could talk me into him as early as I guess I probably wouldn't take him over Luther Burden in this particular situation, but Kaleb Johnson to the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh just feels like a perfect landing spot. And like I said, you can make the argument for him much, much sooner than the 108. You could make an argument for him ahead of Egbuka. I think you'd be a little nuts taking him over Burden or Shedeur Sanders. So maybe much, much sooner, if that's what I said, is maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. But this landing spot's amazing. And then I still think I like a lot of these landing spots, but there's one that I really, really like that could pay off sooner rather than later. And don't forget, we have a couple quarterbacks here that we're taking in round 2 in Superflex, so we do have to remember that. But I love, and it might not pay off right away, but I love these two. I'm just going to make back-to-back picks here. I actually like these landing spots for these players, and I'll tell you why. Because I think I'm banking some value with Omarion, Hampton. And I could almost promise you in this situation that Omarion, Hampton and Quinshon Judkins, because I'm just going to make this pick right now, would maybe in some rookie draft formats fall. And I don't think they should, because the Texans, we're kind of seeing a preview of the role potentially for Omarion Hampton with Joe Mixon. We're seeing Quinshon Judkins with his size and speed and pass catching ability. I'm not saying he's Derrick Henry, but he's a really good heir apparent to Derrick Henry there in Baltimore. And if I have to wait a year for these guys at the 109, 110, I'm going to bank on my team's talented enough to get me to the playoffs. And then who knows? Injuries happen. Quinshon Judkins. especially that Quinshon Judkins one. I mean, really Omarion and Hampton too, but Quinshon Judkins to the Ravens just kind of feels like a match made in heaven with his physical style and his big bruising physical nature as a runner. Really like that. So I'm going to delete some of these cells, shift up. Again, if you have an idea for how I could spruce this up, I'm all ears. I am very much a novice when it comes to graphics, but I thought this would basically do the job here. And again, let me know what you think of this. Like, subscribe, all that stuff as we head towards the end of the first round. So we do have some decisions to make. Do we go tight end? I think that there's a clear choice here, and it's TreVeyon Henderson. And again, this is going to be a theme. There's going to be a lot of running backs that I'm going to take here in rounds, in round 2, heading into round 2, end of round 1, and then into round 2, as I already said. But TreVeyon Henderson with the Chiefs, we saw Isaiah Pacheco get hurt. He is a 7th-round running back. He's not super old, but again, the Chiefs need somebody behind him. That could be a situation where we're a little less certain, we're a little less certain of the role, but we love the potential of the situation there, and that's one that's maybe a little bit more risky, but I still like it. And now I think at the 112, I'm still apprehensive about these two quarterbacks here because Cody has Quinn Ewers going to the Raiders in the early 2nd round and Will Howard going to the Jets in the early 2nd round. And those two organizations make me nervous for quarterbacks, and I don't necessarily like those prospects very much, to be honest. So I think I'm just going to play it safe and go tight end here at the 112. And we know what Sean Payton's tight ends. I don't know why it keeps doing this. Maybe I'm effing up. I don't know. But I want it to cut right there so I don't have to highlight this again. I really don't have to highlight it anyway, but I mean, this is riveting content here for everybody. But Tyler Warren, the more I watch, the more I like of his game, and I think it's a perfect fit for what Sean Payton wants in a tight end, somebody who can block in the running game and somebody who's a really good pass catcher and pretty good after the catch as well. So I think to me that would be a really nice landing spot for him. And then I think I'm going to go Nick Singleton at the 201. The Jaguars, and this is not in Cody's mock because Cody's mock is 2 rounds. So some of these round 3 guys I just threw in there. I thought the Jaguars would be interesting because the Jaguars have a decision to make on Travis Etienne. I don't really think that they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. I would be shocked if they did. So assuming they let Travis Etienne walk, now we're talking about a situation where it's Tank Bigsby, and who knows? So Nicholas Singleton could come in there right away and be the number 1 running back in Jacksonville. And there's a couple other situations too that I have earmarked that are really interesting. Like Dylan Sampson with the Patriots is interesting. Ollie Gordon with the Bengals. He would be, Chase Brown would still be the lead running back, but I think that would be a pretty interesting pairing. Devin Neal with the Steelers would be interesting, but I'm going to go back to the tight end with Colston Loveland with the Rams again. You get the draft capital there with the Rams. You get Sean McVay. We aren't sure. Matthew Stafford, everybody, he's becoming the guy that, who knows when he's going to retire, but he still keeps chugging along, So we're going to go Colston Loveland there. And then Devin Neal's my next pick with the Steelers. Jalen Warren very clearly took a step back this year, although he had some moments. Najee Harris, I would be a little bit surprised, and I'm going to have to pull this up because I'm having a brain fart. Najee Harris contract. I'm pretty sure this is the 5th year of his deal, or his deal is up. And I would be very surprised. Yes, he is there's a team option for 2025, and I would be surprised if the Steelers pick that up. That would surprise me. So if they select Devin Neal, there's a chance, even in round 3, as long as he gets that day 2 draft capital. I'm just gonna say this, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but just watch him run, the patient style. I could see Mike Tomlin really liking it, and shades of Le'Veon Bell. I'll just say that. So we're through the 203, and now I think I just want to keep picking off running backs because I think that's where the talent of this class is. And I think Dylan Sampson to the Patriots is interesting to me. Interesting enough that I would take a chance on him at the 207, or 204 rather. I don't know why I said 207. And I know we've got a wide receiver on the board still that's fallen down a bit, but the landing spot really bothers me there. And I like a lot of these running backs, Dylan Sampson being one of them, as in more of an undersized, slippery running back that's elusive. I think he's exactly somebody who pairs well with the offense that the Patriots are going to want to run, which is a more, and I know Mike Vrabel, from what I hear, it's going to be an all-star cast coaching staff. I mean, that news broke just over the weekends. So Dylan Sampson fits perfectly for what they want to do because Dylan Sampson is a very dynamic runner, in my opinion. And then we get to, I messed up here. Where should I throw Jalen Milroe into this? I know I didn't mess up. I'll take Jalen Milroe right now. You could argue I kind of forgot about him, and you could argue that I should have taken Milroe earlier, and you're probably right. But I don't really like the prospect all that much. For fantasy, he might be very good if given the opportunity, and certainly if he gets drafted by the Steelers, that in round 2, that's going to be intriguing. But I think there's a good chance they bring back either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. So again, we're talking about not necessarily a guarantee of playing time right away, even though he's drafted in round 2. But you could make an argument that, end of round 1, early round 2, that Jalen Milroe should be the pick. I completely get that. Let me know where you would take Jalen Milroe if he gets drafted by the Steelers in round 2. And that puts us middle of the second round. And I think Trey Harris has to come off the board right now. You could definitely make an argument for Trey Harris coming off earlier, but again, I like a lot of these running backs more than some, and round 2 with the Eagles is not necessarily the best landing spot to me. I can understand if you disagree with that, but Trey Harris at the 2 would fall down these rankings quite a bit for me if he gets drafted by the Eagles, because you got to think about it. He'd be behind A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, probably behind Saquon Barkley in terms of being targeted. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but that's the direction I would go. And then you get down here, and then you're like, well, maybe we should take a chance, on some of these quarterbacks. I don't know. I don't feel very good about either one of these landing spots, to be honest, for either one of these quarterbacks. So I'm just going to go with a high dynamic upside wide receiver in Isaiah Bond. And I don't know where Texas keeps finding these guys, but they do. They keep finding these speed guys, and I don't think Isaiah Bond is nearly as effective as Xavier Worthy was. But if he gets drafted round 2 to the Cowboys, I do think he's a nice complement to what they've got going on there. Dak Prescott's going to be there. We know the coaching staff is going to be different. Who knows what that's going to look like? The Cowboys have kind of been a weird organization lately with letting contracts run out. So again, who knows what'll happen? But I do like the talent and the upside of an Isaiah Bond, and he has, like as I've said many times, he has the best touchdown dance in all of college football. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look it up. And then Jalen Broyles. And Jalen Broyles, again, another upside guy. Just go look at his, like, and I know stats aren't everything, but just go look at his stats, like this past year. And it's pretty impressive what he was able to do, especially against Boise State. And you watch him on film, and he feels like a prospect that's really raw, but also has a lot of upside. And if he gets drafted by the Dolphins in round 2 with Mike McDaniel, with potentially Tyreek Hill leaving, I think I like that quite a bit. And now at this stage in the draft, at the 209, I'm just going to throw both of these quarterbacks because I don't really have a preference. I think Ewers I would prefer over Will Howard. But this would be at the stage of the draft where I would say, okay, round 2, they're probably going to get a chance to start. Maybe I'm crazy. I'll take the quarterbacks here in a Superflex league that are getting the draft capital. And then that leaves a couple more picks to be made, the 211 and the 212. And I'll just go ahead and say, F it. Ollie Gordon, if he gets drafted by the Bengals, I get it. He'll be behind Chase Brown, but pass catching ability, I think that would be a nice compliment. And just, I know he had a down year this year, but the year before this year was extremely impressive. And then Xavier Restrepo, you could probably make the argument that he should be selected. I mean, as far as talent-wise, he reminds me a lot of this year's Ricky Pearsall. And there's a chance he gets drafted higher than this, but he wasn't in Cody's mock, so I mocked him round 3 to the Cardinals. And Xavier Restrepo, the 212, feels like stealing to me, honestly, because I think in my rankings I had him as an early second round pick without a landing spot, and late second round here with a round 3 landing spot feels like a really, really good deal, especially for a championship team in round 2. So that will do the mock draft. That'll do it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm just going to recap briefly, and then we'll get out of here. Ashton Jeanty at the 101, Cam Ward at the 102, Travis Hunter at the 103, Tet McMillan at the 104, Shedeur Sanders 105, Luther Burden 106, Egbuka 107, Kaleb Johnson 108, Omarion Hampton at the 109, Quinshon Judkins at the 110, TreVeyon Henderson at the 111, Tyler Warren at the 112. Then we got Nicholas Singleton, Colston Loveland, Devin Neal, Dylan Sampson, Jalen Milroe, Trey Harris, Isaiah Bond, Jalen Broyles, Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Ollie Gordon, and finally Xavier Restrepo at the 212. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know what you think of these mock drafts. I'm trying to figure out a better way to do this other than just throwing it in a spreadsheet, but this feels like the most efficient way to do this. And we're just throwing all these in a spreadsheet. As you can see at the bottom, these are previous mock drafts that we've done here. Thank you again so much. Don't forget to click like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Be good, everybody.